Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a show where we will provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's begin the show with the headlines first. Violence against Hindus in Chittagong highlights growing threat to minorities in Bangladesh. Grenade attack in Srinagar injures 12 amid rising terror incidents. And tensions rise as Pakistan fails to protect Chinese nationals amid wave of violence. In Bangladesh, a disturbing incident underscores the growing threat that hardline Islamists and law enforcement pose to minority communities. A recent clash in Chittagong saw the Hindu community targeted by authorities after protesting against a local trader's derogatory remarks about their faith. As religious intolerance mounts, calls for protection of minorities in Bangladesh are growing. Here's a detailed report on the issue. The religious minorities in Bangladesh find themselves under siege, and last week's incident in Chittagong city is a chilling reminder of that reality. Local Hindus gathered to protest derogatory comments made by a trader named Osman Mullah, who reportedly insulted the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, and the broader Sanatan Dharm community. But instead of holding the Muslim trader accountable, law enforcement authorities put him in safe custody and turned their aggression towards the Hindu community.
Abundantly clear that the minorities were deliberately targeted to brutal force where they were unarmed or did not possess any sharp weapons of that nature or sort, rest alone any firearms. So the use of indiscriminate and brutal force in order to suppress the voice of the minorities is something which has to be condemned, and I think this is again feeding to that audience in the government or on its fringes sideline, is that we are taking a very heavy-handed approach to the minorities and probably in a way to crush their willpower or to make sure that they do not raise their legitimate voices of concern and protest in future. So I think they are trying to set an example or a template for the future to take cognizance and act upon.
In Hazari Goli, Chittagong, witnesses recorded shocking footage showing a joint force of police and army officials descending on the Hindu protesters with batons, injuring many. Ground reports suggest that the authorities rationalized their crackdown by accusing the Hindu protesters of throwing bricks and acid, a claim that local sources strongly deny. In a move that raises serious questions about accountability, law enforcement authorities were seen destroying CCTV cameras in the area, an attempt many believe to erase evidence of their actions. Several Hindu community members were detained in the crackdown that continued late into the night, leaving the neighborhood gripped by fear.
The hardline groups in Bangladesh have a great voice and they are calling the shots from behind and sometimes in the open. So and there will be a lot of instability and atrocities which is very shameful and has to be condemned against the minorities. And I think it is the agenda of these hardliners to establish some kind of a caliphate or a state which is aligned on contrast to the founding principles of a very secular and a independent, forward-thinking state by the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman.
The incident has sparked nationwide outrage, with hundreds marching in the capital Dhaka, demanding immediate protection for Bangladesh's Hindu community and other minorities who feel increasingly vulnerable under the current regime. Following the recent political shift and the ouster of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, an unelected advisory council now heads the caretaker government led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. While Yunus has condemned attacks on Hindus, activists argue that the government's response has been insufficient, with authorities often turning a blind eye to violence against minorities.
So the interim government has the sole and the primary responsibility of bringing law and order and peace to the country and to transit to a fresh set of elections, which it seems they are trying to deliberately delay, and the law and order situation is deteriorating day by day. So I think the challenges are tremendous for Dr. Professor Yunus to counter, and he should take cognizance of this situation because the whole world is watching on him, and a point will come when the so-called excuse of they have just come to power after a violent bloodshed revolution, and they have to produce results. They have to convince the greater world that they mean business and they will take stern and firm actions against the perpetrators in order to establish the law of the country in accordance to the Constitution of Bangladesh.
Many of Bangladesh's Hindu families now live in a state of constant fear. Some feel they are being pushed to the margins of society, while others worry about their safety every time tensions flare. International human rights organizations have voiced concern, highlighting how repeated incidents like in Chittagong are tarnishing Bangladesh's image as a tolerant secular state. As the interim government in Dhaka faces growing scrutiny, calls for a more inclusive, minority-friendly administration have intensified. For Bangladesh's Hindu community, recent events are a painful reminder of the dangers they face. Without genuine protection from the government, these citizens are left to navigate life in fear, hoping for a future where their rights are respected. Let's shift our focus to Jammu and Kashmir, where recent terror attacks have shaken a region that has been steadily moving forward towards peace and development. Just days ago, a grenade attack in Srinagar's bustling Sunday market injured 12 innocent people, marking the first major strike in the city in 2 years. The surge in terrorist attacks in Jammu and Kashmir is raising serious concerns, with fingers pointing firmly at Pakistan's alleged involvement. Here's a detailed report.
Over the past month, Jammu and Kashmir has witnessed a sudden spike in terror attacks. On November 3rd, at least 12 people were injured when terrorists hurled a grenade at Indian security forces in Srinagar's bustling Sunday market, a popular spot for both locals and tourists. The explosive thrown from a flyover sparked a chaos and panic among shoppers in the area. The injured were rushed to nearby hospitals. They are now reported to be in stable condition. Yet this incident marks the first significant terror strike in Srinagar in 2 years, leaving security forces on high alert.
हम लोग पेशेंट इनको देखने आए थे इंजर्ड को और इनका जो भी अभी ट्रीटमेंट चल रहा है जो 2 पेशेंट्स हैं उनका दे प्लान फॉर सर्जरी.
Just a day earlier, 3 terrorists were neutralized in separate encounters in Anantnag and Srinagar, including a high-profile Pakistani commander of the Lashkar-e-Taiba known as Usman. Active in the valley for several years, Usman was implicated in the murder of Inspector Masroor Wani, who was tragically killed while playing cricket last October. This confrontation marks another violent chapter in Jammu and Kashmir, just weeks after its first elected government took office following the revocation of Article 370 in 2019.
अर्ली मॉर्निंग से शाम तक ये ऑपरेशन चला और अब ये ऑपरेशन मुकम्मल हो चुका है. इसमें एक जो टेररिस्ट है वो सुरक्षा बलों ने मार गिराया है, तो जिसकी तस्दीक उस्मान लश्करी अलियास छोटा वलीद के तौर पे एलईटी का कमांडर था, उस तौर पर हुई है। और इसमें सुरक्षा बलों के जो 4 जवान हैं उनको इंजरीज आई हैं, 2 जम्मू कश्मीर पुलिस के जवान हैं और 2 सीआरपी के जवान हैं।
Reports indicate that Pakistan's intelligence services, particularly the inter-services, continue to run training camps across the line of control, equipping insurgents with arms and tactical training in guerrilla warfare. This cross-border aid directly supports terror outfits like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Hizbul Mujahideen, which are known to receive steady funding and weapons from Pakistan. By maintaining sleeper cells within Jammu and Kashmir, these groups have intensified their terror campaigns, feeding a renewed cycle of violence and instability in the region. Defense experts warn that these terror networks and sleeper cells have been reactivated, likely with a strategic nod from Pakistan. It's becoming increasingly evident that these operatives are facilitated by Pakistan to undermine security and disrupt progress in Kashmir. This is a deliberate attempt by Islamabad to keep Jammu and Kashmir mired in violence.
Now a crowded area in Srinagar has been attacked, very crowded area related to tourists. What does it mean? It means that the terrorist now is becoming bolder and bolder and bolder. The terrorist is using grenades. Grenade means what? It area weapon means when you throw a grenade, it's above the surface, maximum people should get injured or killed, whatever the case may be. It does not create any holes in the earth. No, nothing like this. It's anti-infantry. It's an infantry weapon. So if that grenade is being used, it means their aim is clear to wound maximum people as much as possible or kill and create terror, and that's what they're doing. Problem is, who is supporting them? They can't operate without support. So there are sleeper cells. And who are the sleeper cells? They are the ground root level workers. They are normal society.
This pattern of escalating violence in Jammu and Kashmir underscores Pakistan's ongoing efforts to destabilize Kashmir. Rather than addressing its internal crisis, Pakistan's leadership remains fixated on fueling cross-border terrorism, using Kashmir as a diversion to distract from its failures at home. By stoking fear and instability in Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan not only marks its own governance breakdowns but also attempts to mislead its population, keeping Kashmir at the forefront of its national rhetoric.
Moving on, Pakistan is witnessing growing violence against Chinese nationals, with the latest incident taking place in Karachi, where a security guard reportedly shot and injured 2 Chinese workers. This marks the 3rd attack on Chinese citizens in Pakistan this year, intensifying tensions with Beijing, a long-time ally and financial backer. The escalating threat to Chinese nationals and investments may raise serious questions about Pakistan's commitment to ensuring security for its key foreign partners. We have a report.
Authorities in Karachi reported another targeted attack against Chinese workers in Pakistan. The incident occurred when a Pakistani security guard allegedly opened fire on 2 Chinese nationals following a dispute at a local factory. One of the workers remains in critical condition, and this shooting incident adds to a disturbing trend of increasing violence against Chinese citizens in Pakistan. This attack comes amid rare public criticism from Beijing, whose ambassador recently expressed frustration over Islamabad's failure to protect Chinese workers. Last month, a suicide bomber killed 2 Chinese engineers in Karachi.
जो इनिशियल इतला हुई है वो एक ऑयल टैंकर जो है उसके आग लगने से जो मुतअद्दिद गाड़ियाँ जो है वो उसकी जद में आई हैं और उससे बहुत सारा कोलेटरल डैमेज हुआ है। उसको हम अभी मज़ीद असर्टेन कर रहे हैं कि इसमें दहशतगर्दी का एलिमेंट या कोई और एलिमेंट जो है तखरीब कारी का वो किस हद तक है जिसको हम अभी रूल आउट नहीं कर सकते।
Earlier this year, another bombing targeted Chinese nationals en route to a hydropower project. The Baloch Liberation Army, a separatist group, has claimed responsibility for several of these attacks, viewing Chinese infrastructure projects as threats to their regional aspirations. Despite Pakistan's repeated assurances of safety, the death toll of Chinese workers in Pakistan has reached 21 since the launch of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor almost a decade ago. These projects central to China's Belt and Road Initiative include highways, power plants, and the Gwadar Deep Sea Port. However, security lapses continue to cast a shadow over the ambitious development plan. In a rare display of diplomatic strain, the Pakistani Foreign Ministry dismissed the ambassador's remarks as perplexing and claimed they were inconsistent with diplomatic traditions. However, observers note that Islamabad's inability to address security concerns is putting strain on the China-Pakistan alliance.
There are certain investments that the Chinese have already committed to. I mean, the fact is many investments, at least private investment, are something that the Chinese did not want to do. They've been basically forced to do it by the Chinese government. So that is why when you have forced your businessmen, your corporations to invest in Pakistan and Pakistanis are not able to protect them, then of course complaints get louder. Now, the Chinese may be an authoritarian regime, but you cannot get your company, the Chinese corporations, businessmen to get killed and expect them to keep on investing. So there is a limit to which the Chinese can force the businessmen. So if security is not provided and later on if returns do not come in, loans are not prepaid, then China will have certain things to say. And that is what you are seeing on the ground.
For Pakistan, the stakes are high. The country depends heavily on Chinese investment for its infrastructure and energy sectors. But without concrete actions to protect Chinese workers, Islamabad risks losing both critical support and credibility as a stable partner.
Pakistan is in the grip of a severe fuel crisis, with petrol prices hitting unprecedented levels. As the cost of living skyrockets, ordinary Pakistanis are left grappling with a government seemingly unable to offer any relief. For many, survival has become a daily struggle as fuel prices hikes push the limits of their endurance. The Pakistani government faces mounting criticism over its handling of the fuel crisis, and with each price hike, citizens grow more desperate.
The fuel price situation in Pakistan has reached a tipping point. On November 1, 2024, the Pakistani government announced yet another increase in petrol prices, raising the rate by 1 rupees 35 paise per litre to 248 rupees 38 paise. High-speed diesel prices also surged, now costing 255 rupees 14 paise per litre. While officials blame the rise on global market fluctuations, citizens are left struggling to make ends meet. For years, Pakistan has heavily depended on imported oil, which meets over 79% of its energy needs. This dependency, coupled with the ongoing crisis in the Middle East, has left the country vulnerable to global market volatility. But while officials may justify the rise, for ordinary Pakistanis, these figures represent an unbearable reality. The latest hike only adds to the burden on the average citizen, who is already facing spiraling inflation, job instability, and an uncertain future.
हल निकालने वाली पहली बात तो हमारी हुकूमत है। हुकूमत नहीं निकालेगी और इसके किसी गरीब के पास या किसी अमीर के पास कोई ऑप्शन है नहीं। किसके पास अगर कार है तो उसका 2 लाख 3 लाख रुपए सैलरी है बैंक में, तो वो तो सही है इम्पॉसिबल। हम जैसों के लिए ड्राइवर लोग हैं, सुजुकी चलाते, ये इतना महंगा हो गया पेट्रोल, 100 248 रुपये हो गया। तो हम क्या नाम है कस्टमर से अगर हम अपनी डील करते हैं, क्या नाम है, हम अपना किराया मांगते हैं तो वो हमें बता दें कि पेट्रोल इतने रुपये लीटर है। अगर पेट्रोल पे हम लोग जिए तो तब भी नहीं जी सकते, इतना महंगा है पेट्रोल। बस ये है कि हुकूमत से गुजारिश है, गरीबों, हम भी गरीब लोग हैं, गरीबों के लिए थोड़ा सा इजाफा करे, महंगाई कम करे। वैसे तो करोड़ों बंदे अपील करते हैं, किसी की सुनाई नहीं होती। ये मेहरबानी करे, इनको बोले हुकूमत को। और लोग तो अक्सर गालम गलूच कर रहे हो, तो इससे क्या है कि गुनाह है। यह है कि इनको खुद शर्म आनी चाहिए। हर इंसान मजबूर है, यहाँ पे रोज़ी करने के लिए आया हुआ है। ये मेहरबानी हमारी अपील है कि हम मजदूर बंदे, हमारे साथ जितनी भी लेबर होती है परेशान है।
Javed is not alone. Across Pakistan, frustration is turning into desperation. While the government points to external factors like international market volatility, citizens question why their leaders haven't found ways to protect them from these recurring price shocks. In Pakistan's cities, the situation is grim. Every day, local workers face a crushing choice between keeping their jobs or covering basic expenses. The high fuel prices ripple through every aspect of life. Transportation, food, and housing costs have all increased. The middle and lower classes are stretched thin, with many barely managing to survive.
ये पेट्रोल सस्ता होवे, हर चीज़ सस्ती होवे, गरीब आदमी तो रोटी खाता है ना, उसको रोटी भी नहीं मिल रही पूरी। ये पूरा दिन हम लोग इधर खड़े हो के, ये बात ऐसा होता है बिस्मिल्लाह भी नहीं होती, हम खाली जाते हैं घर पे। किराया भी जेब से भर के आते हैं, पेट्रोल जो गाड़ी लेके जाता है वो अपने जेब से भर के आता है। तो एक दिन अगर एक भाड़ा लगता है, दूसरे दिन वो उसी में आ जाता है, वो पेट्रोल में आ जाता है।
Pakistan's fuel crisis highlights the government's inability to protect its citizens from economic hardship. Each new price hike drives another nail into the economy, hitting the poorest the hardest. Local markets and transport systems are feeling the strain, and citizens are paying the ultimate price for what they see as mismanagement.
भाई हम कमा नहीं सकते, खा नहीं सकते, इतनी महंगाई बढ़ गई है। अभी हम मजदूर लोग कहाँ जाएं? इधर पूरे मार्केट में मजदूर लोग हैं, कहाँ जाएगा ये? जो कमाते हैं शाम को 300-400 मिलते हैं, वो सालन लेके जाते हैं, कोई भी नहीं भूखा, कभी सो जाते हैं, कभी पेट भर के सो जाते हैं। ये हमारी कहानी है। अभी हम कहाँ जाएं? ये पाकिस्तान का हाल है, हमारे बड़ों का हाल है। ऐसे कोई किसी को नहीं, गरीब को दुख सुख पूछने आता है, भाई ये क्या हुआ तुम्हारे साथ, क्या नहीं हुआ। ये से हमारे लोग हैं। ये वोट हो जाते, आ जाओ गरीबों हमारे साथ मिलो, हम तुम्हारे को ये करेंगे। वो कुछ भी नहीं पूछने नहीं आते, तो भूखे मर गए या जिंदा हो क्या नहीं हो। ये कहानी होती है हमारे साथ। हम गरीब लोग हैं, कहाँ जाए?
In Pakistan, survival has become a day-to-day battle, with fuel prices rising, inflation climbing, and government relief nowhere in sight. Citizens are left to wonder how much more they can endure.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.